I literally look back at my life, and as painful as so many times were, it was, well, that's what developed you into the person you were.
Rocky Toros, an aspiring entrepreneur, empowers others to become confident speakers and communicators.
Humbled in New York. You gotta tell us what happened.
I lost my job, and I was out of work, professional work, for 16 months.
What does you leaving corporate look like and why?
The top seller in the company turns around and he looks at me and he was like, "You missed your calling." And he's like, "Motivational speaker. You
Wow.
absolutely should be doing this."
Welcome back to another episode of Attractive Mindset. And today's guest took a little trip all the way down just to be with us. But listen, I'm gonna let her tell you a little bit more about herself before we dive deep. Meet Rocky.
Hey everyone, I am Rocky Toro and I drove from Tampa, Florida. Definitely enjoyed the ride over here for sure. But I actually am a professional speaker and I work on motivation side of things. So
Okay.
the power of betting on yourself for sure. We also talk about dotted line leadership, how to be a leader without having that official title that makes you someone that you have to listen to. And I also have a keynote on Fired Again, how to go from sinking to soaring after job loss.
Okay, sinking to soaring after job loss. And so,
Yes.
hold on. Can we just take a moment for that introduction? Very demure, very cutesy.
Very mindful.
Yeah, very mindful. No, but okay, cool. Motivational speaking.
Yes.
I like that. You know, I want to say we've had three motivational speakers on here so far.
That's what's up.
Well, you being the third.
Awesome.
And so 3 is my favorite number.
I like it.
Do with that what you want. But
what makes 3 your favorite number?
you know, Allen Iverson.
Okay.
Yeah. I just liked him playing basketball. He wore the number 3 and it became my favorite number. There's no other reason. But so you drove from Tampa, but are you from Tampa?
Well, I've been in Tampa for about 11 years collectively. I grew up in a small town called Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Okay.
So at 18, I couldn't wait to get away. So I went to the University of South Florida and I lived in Tampa for about 7 years. And then after that, I moved to New York for 5 years. That's where my
Okay,
family's
New
from.
York. Me too.
Oh, what part of New York?
Brooklyn.
I was in Bed-Stuy for a year. They broke into my
yeah.
car over there. I don't know
Wow.
how I feel about Bed-Stuy.
I'm not affiliated with them, but hey,
But I actually lived in Jamaica, Queens for another 4 years.
I went to school at Jamaica High School. So yeah.
Okay, so around the same corner.
You know
Got
what I
it.
mean?
All right.
Okay.
And I was humbled during my time in New York City. So I tucked my tail between my legs, came back home to the beloved Port St. Lucie for about 2 years, and then
We're not going to skip past that part. Humbled in New York. You got to tell us what happened.
Oh man. So it was a lot of high highs and low lows, but I was born in New York, but I was 27 days old when I left. So for me, I had this dream growing up that New York was going to be my end all be all and that I was going to have this fantastic life, I guess something out of the movies. And when I moved up there, I was doing a job that probably wasn't best suited for my skill set, but it was in New York, so I took it.
Okay.
And that was some interesting times. I focused a lot on dancing too. I was dancing salsa at the time. So,
Salsa.
yes.
You know,
You nice with it?
listen, I got a little something.
I'm gonna test you on that.
Okay.
But I was working for about a year and a half over there, and then I lost my job, and I was out of work, professional work, for 16 months.
Wow.
So I learned what it was to hustle and make ends meet as much as possible. So I was working with kids after school at one point, and then I would go and be a shot girl at a bar afterwards. So I was kind of working the extremes and any little odd jobs I could pick up. And somehow I had food in my mouth every day. I don't always know. When I woke up, I didn't always know if I was going to eat that day or what. But after those 16 months, my mindset just completely switched. I was a very different person after all of that. It was a difficult time. But I was able to get a job in digital marketing.
Okay.
So that was nice. And I walked away from the dance world so that I can focus on work. I stayed in the city about another year after that, and that's when I headed back to Florida. Hey everybody, this is Rocky Toro, and October 1st, I start my beta pilot program for 4 individuals looking to increase their personal brand or grow in business. Do the one thing that 95% of people are afraid of and work on your public speaking. We can take you in 30 days from being someone that's afraid to somebody that's ready to hit the stage.
Okay, so there's a lot of different sections in that to digest.
Oh, yeah.
And so the first section that I want to digest is dance.
Mhm.
And so dance is originally what you went over there for, right?
It was part of the passion that brought me over there.
Okay.
But I was going to grow my career. I had my first big girl job after I graduated was with Verizon Fios.
Okay.
And I worked in the marketing department. So I was there for about a year. I had an incredible group of leaders around me that supported me, that were basically developing me into a professional. And I worked in the marketing department about 6 months before my director looked at me and was like, okay, we're going to put you in training. You have some skills that you don't realize are there. And part of that was the ability to speak in front of a crowd and teach, right?
You went to school for marketing?
Yes, marketing and management. I dual majored.
Okay.
And so I was devastated. I didn't want to, I thought I was going to be this marketing professional that climb up the ranks and it was always going to be marketing. And that just wasn't the case. And I'm very glad that those leaders saw that in me and did that. And I was a contract worker at the time, working in a union environment. So that's a fun one for sure.
For sure.
But I was able to win a lot of people over and get them on my side. I mean, I was training people that were working at the company longer than I had been alive.
Wow.
At the time. So it was a very interesting time of just slowly winning people over and working with them and doing what I could as an unofficial leader to get them to just go with, hey, these are the new things that we're doing now. You're going to have to let go of the old way. I know we like the old way, but we're going to do the new way. And I developed and grew a lot during that time professionally. So when my contract ended, I had an entire group of managers that were there to help me get another job. I was offered a job in Tampa and I was offered a job in New York City. And it was a sales marketing job in New York City. I found out the hard way that I am not a salesperson. So I was like, oh, I'm going to take the job in New York, even though the one in Tampa was better suited for my skill set. Now that I look back in hindsight. But I went to New York and it went from being an environment where people were supportive of me and took the time to help develop and grow me to good luck. And I remember I was in the role for about 8 or 6 months, something like that. And I pulled the director aside and I was like, listen, I'm not doing well in this role. And I know I could do better in a different role. And she looked at me and said, you need to get your numbers up before we ever recommend you for another role.
Wow.
So it was like, what? I'm telling you that this is not an area where I'm succeeding and I'm looking to try and find an area where I can succeed. And it just didn't happen. So I would say on top of just adjusting to a place like New York and being young, being a bit immature and having to grow up, all of that just compounded to the point where I just checked out. I was like, this isn't working. I tried to find other work. It wasn't happening. And then I was fired. That was the first time. Wow. And I was on unemployment for about 6 months. And then after that, we just held on for dear life for the remaining time that I was out of work. So there was a lot to it for sure.
No, that's how champions are really built. Honestly, everybody has to have that like molding story. And this is why we like to go into these things in Attractive Mindset, because these stories aren't something that you'll just see on your Instagram page, and people have no idea of what you've been through. You don't look like what you've been through. And that's great. You know what I'm saying? You have the smile, you have the aura, you have the vibe, you have the presence. And so helping people to understand a little bit deeper about us helps them to connect with our brands even more. And so with dance is very passionate. Dance is very, you have to be really into dance to become a good dancer. And so what is dance to you?
I grew up dancing. That is where I learned what it was to be on stage
Mm.
and learn how to project energy out into the audience. And I started off doing classical ballet, and I
Okay.
danced for 11 years, 6 of which I danced on point. I
Okay.
also did jazz, modern, and hip hop. And then after college was when I got into the Latin style dancing with salsa, cha-cha, bachata, that kind of thing.
Okay. And so when you say modern and hip hop, is it like stylistic or is it like Ray Gun from the Olympics?
That's breakdancing. And no, I didn't. It was funny. I did try a little bit of breakdancing at one point. I had met some b-boys in Tampa that were so dope, awesome people, love them to death, and it was so challenging to get into. So I was like, oh, we're just gonna stick more to more regular hip hop.
Okay.
I'll just keep it there. Yeah, we.
Okay.
Homegirl just looked crazy on the Olympics.
I had to slip that one in there.
Oh, she was slipping all over the floor.
This is true. So,
sorry.
What made salsa connect with you the most?
Well, my background, I'm Puerto Rican.
Okay.
And for me, I was looking to, it just kind of happened. I had just a couple of friends that kept saying, do it, get into salsa. And I was like, I'm busy with school. I have this. I was in a sorority. I was in a Latin sorority in college. So I just had a lot going on. And then after I graduated, I realized I was like, I need to get back into dancing again. I have all this energy, and I was making money at that point so I could afford the classes.
Yeah.
So I got into it. And Florida salsa dancing was where I got my introduction, but a lot of the great dancers are in New York City.
Yeah.
Right. So it just kind of felt like, all right, I can have my career and I could dance. Let me go do that. And I definitely got a lot of dancing in for sure.
Okay. No, that's major. Okay. So now we go through our dancing, we go through our marketing, we go through our New York time.
Mhm.
What made you come back to Florida?
When you just hit that last straw of frustration and everything is going to shit, and you have that one last thing that you owe that came out of left field, and you're like, how am I gonna do this?
Yeah.
I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm going into the negative, just into the edge of, I just was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I called my director, who had just moved to Buffalo, New York. So it worked out in perfect timing. And I asked her, I'm like, can I keep my job and move back to Florida? I just can't stay in the city anymore. And she said, absolutely. Do what you got to do. She's like, you work remote from your teams anyway. You're doing great with your role. You know what you're doing. You got a grasp on it. Go home. So she was so supportive, an absolutely incredible leader. And she's always going to be one of those top people that I look at and think to myself, yeah, she knew how to lead a group of people, and I appreciated her very much as a person. So
amazing. And so now you're back in Florida, you're doing what you do, what new version of Rocky gets created?
So I believe that a new version of you is always emerging. And
I like that.
There is always a shedding that happens. I've been broken into pieces and had to put myself back together, but it was also like calling your energy back in. It was going back to that young little girl that had all of this vigor for life and excitement, and bring her back with the experiences as well. And so for me, my growth has made me have to continue to shed and continue to grow, because it's almost like, I don't know if you're into Hamilton, but that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Okay. So never being satisfied. It's almost like,
I'm not going away.
I'm not throwing away my shot.
Yeah.
But it's that, okay, well, I've improved this area of my life. Now I have this area of my life I can improve. And that means I'm going to have to level up. That means I'm going to have to get uncomfortable again. That means I'm going to have to try a different perspective. That means I'm going to have to surround myself with the right type of people. Okay, this part is good, but I'm still not happy here. How do we level up over and over and over again? So I think the version of Rocky people have now is still a transitional phase of growth, because after leaving corporate, which we'll get more into that, after leaving corporate, I am completely in my out of my comfort zone again. And at the end of the day, it's it's very fleeting, the comfort zone, and I accept it for what it is. And I know that if I'm going to achieve the goals that I'm looking to achieve, I just got to keep going.
Absolutely. So we can jump right into that.
Yeah.
What does you leaving corporate look like and why?
So the last company I was with was not a healthy environment for a person like me. And I don't
elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a level of conformity that's expected when you work in corporate.
Absolutely.
And when you just don't blindly do what people tell you to do, or I like to ask questions. I'm a why person. I'm like, well, why are we doing that? Why are we shifting this way? You want feedback? Great. I'll give it to you. You want me to review this document and tear it apart? Great. I'll do that. And then have a problem that I did what you told me to do. I don't do well in those situations. I was like, but you're looking for improvement. You've asked for improvement. When I give you improvement, you're pissed off that I gave you improvement. And it just started to shift into, there were people in leadership that,
Shouldn't have been in leadership? Okay.
not on the human aspect of it. They had no idea what it was to actually be there for humans, in my perspective. The favoritism was through the roof. The bias was out of control. I think I intimidated a few and made people uncomfortable, and that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
But it became a very toxic situation. My anxiety was through the roof. It was getting so intense. And I was finding myself in a situation where I needed to take some space from the company for some family situation that was coming. And they got whiff that I was trying to take leave time. And they were like, nail her now, nail her now. I mean, I went on vacation and my boss at the time was trying to find a way to fire me while I was gone. She was just waiting for me to be on vacation to find a reason.
Wow.
Okay. All right. And then her boss was on her side. And then there was another it was basically the three managers in the department were just on that same tip. And I did not kiss their asses. And so the tumble began. But I was fired. And the greatest part about that was the moment I was fired, the anxiety just left my body. Trigger gone. And it was that moment that I knew this is the right thing. I have nothing to fear. I have been in worse situations. I knew exactly what to kick into because I had been out of work for 16 months with nothing and surviving on drips of money, trying to understand. I was like, okay, I can put this on hold. I can pay this bill at this time. I can get this situated. Perfect. They did give me a severance. I'm grateful for that part of it, and was just able to orchestrate myself so that I could continue to move forward and not worry about it.
Okay.
I mean, just growing. So that happened in May. And the funny thing was though, I will always say thank you to this company because in January of this year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just recent.
Oh, wow.
We're going full throttle.
Got it.
When I say bet on yourself, I am saying bet on myself. I'm done with the other stuff. I'm done with the control situation. I have faith. But in January, I was asked to do a work-life balance workshop kind of speech thing for the HBR, which is a half business review.
Okay.
And prior to that, they had asked me to they asked me to pull it together in like a day and a half toward the end of this, the last quarter. And they're like, oh yeah, present to the team. You're going to do a training. So I was like, okay. So I pulled the training together. It went over really, really well. So then they asked me to do it again for the HBR. It was in front of all of C-level, all the VPs, all of management, individual contributors. I did it in front of the entire company. And we were in Aruba. So it was also a nice little trip on top of that.
Aruba,
We had some nice trips. So there is some good stuff to it too. I just didn't like a lot of the people there. But anyway, I digress. And
if you got to not like somebody, not like them in Aruba.
So they asked me to do it. It was around 3:00. And 2-3 is when everybody's like, I'm ready to go home. I'm tired. I want to go back to my hotel so I can take a nap, so I can get back on the beach and all that kind of stuff. Well, I had an hour-long slot, and I was the only one that was not a director level or higher in leadership that was presenting that day. And it went exceptionally well.
Wow.
It went exceptionally well. I had such an incredible time being in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wrap it up. Everybody's so excited, had a great time. We had a whole workshop section that was going. People were interacting with one another. I mean, there was a point that one of the CEO's advisor had taken the mic from me and started talking. I mean, it went really well though. I went back to my seat and I'm all the way in the back because my last name's Toro. So I was sitting at the end of the alphabet. And the top seller in the company turns around and he looks at me and he was like, "You missed your calling." And he caught me so off guard. I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" Like, I think the adrenaline was still pumping out of my body from being in front of a crowd, right? And he's like, "Motivational speaker. You absolutely should be doing this." And this was not the first time I had heard this in my life. I had heard it throughout my entire time of being in undergrad. I was always the person they gave the mic to when we had any type of events at school. At fourth grade, I was asked to speak in my brother's fifth grade graduation by the principal. I was the morning anchor. I had always been the person that they're like, "Oh, put her on stage." And I attribute so much of that confidence to my years of dance, right? So there's some transferable skills there. And I remember going back home and thinking to myself, you know what? There is no more corporate after this. The next gig is me following the speaking career, me going out there and figuring out what that looks like. And so in February, I purchased a course. It was called Mic Drop Workshop. And the woman that created this workshop teaches other women how to become keynote speakers. I bought it on a whim. One of the best decisions I made. I started working on the workshop. I started developing my keynotes. I started figuring out what I wanted to do. And then I got fired in May. So it all worked out because I already knew the direction I was going. What I found during that time, though, was the pressure and the anxiety in dealing with people that would say they needed one thing from you one moment and then say another thing and start to manipulate the situation. And this is very much my perspective. If you'd like to have them on the show so they can say theirs, by all means. But my perspective was, you're playing games and I'm not appreciating this.
Facts.
And so I was finding myself unable to have the energy to put into my own stuff after work because it's like I'm literally done with work.
Yeah.
Netflix, cuddle with my dog. That was about what I had the energy for. And it's funny because when you're meant to be in a certain path or you're not meant to be in a space, I literally felt like I got kicked right out.
Wow.
It was like the little birdie getting kicked out of the nest. Go, fly, do it. And that's where I landed. So I decided that I was going to just focus in on that. It took me a little while to figure out what I really wanted to zero in on. And even now, as it's continuing to grow and change, and I'm being, got to be nimble at the beginning and figure out, you'd rather slowly find a direction and set the right path than to go full blaze in the wrong direction and then have to back up and then go the other way. So I was like, all right, let me go through this adjustment time, this transitional time. And I just have to say that when it comes to my mental health, it has just been such a better
skyrocket.
Oh my goodness. I actually feel joy and happiness again.
Even just meeting you, greeting you, I can feel that energy because you go and I meet a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people and you feel like if they had a long day of work, you know what that feels like their posture, their everything says it. But, even just, hey, like, hey, like you can tell that you have a certain level of control over your environment right now. And that's beautiful. That's an amazing thing. So
feels good.
Motivational speaking.
Yes.
Take us into your world.
So I realized I wanted to help people. Sitting there doing task and having to do something that I wasn't as interested in was difficult for me. But helping people after all of the mindset change I've had to do in my life, all the growth I've had to do in my life, digging myself out of losing everything and putting myself back together and not having health insurance to do it. So I didn't have a therapist to help me through it. I didn't get on medication to, ease my mind or any of that. I just had to continue to push through and make it work, whether I had the energy or not, whether I was able to get out of, I mean, there were days where just getting out of bed was the best I could do. That's all. Like, get in the shower, clean yourself up, and then you roll right back in bed again, because it was just so difficult to deal with certain days. So to get to a point now that I went from thinking at one point in my life, how could I ever be a homeowner because I can't keep a job, to purchasing my first home in 2022, there was just so much that had to happen between that time. And what I've found through all of it was mindset shift had to happen, and getting out of negative environments where people do not support you or care for you had to go. Snipping season had to happen. Goodbye. And surrounding myself again with the people that loved me and cared for me, that were my biggest cheerleaders. And I had that not only with my father and my family, I had that with my people in Tampa. So just getting back to that point where I was around that again, and continuing to, because once you hit rock bottom, you got to ascend back up there. You don't just transport back to the top. Absolutely. You got to re-earn every single little thing you've done. Yep. So I had to scale back up through all of these lessons and learn them from a different perspective in a different way, and have my own back. I had gotten to a point where I had put my bets on everyone else. I thought everyone else was great. They're so wonderful. They're doing, and I forgot how good I was at things. I forgot how dope I was. Like, wait a minute, hold on. What happened here? So taking that power back and being able to be where I'm at. And again, in a transitional phase, I'm not at the top of the mountain yet. Right? But then you get to the top of the mountain. It's just another mountain that you're like, oh, that one looks nice. Yeah. I want that one next. It's the opportunity to share the experience and come from a human perspective. Because one of the great things about mind and psychology and all of that is there's a whole science to it. Yep. But when you're able to pair it with the emotional aspect, along with the logic and the facts, you're able to actually move people farther than you ever would if you were just lecturing at them at the situation or telling them what it is.
Agreed.
You're able to look at somebody, and I heard somebody one time say that you never truly understand somebody, but you can honor them. And so learning to honor people's situations and where they are, and having the understanding I have of my life, and being able to be an active listener and take in what they're dealing with and just hear them out a bit and understand, oh, okay, they're about here in this situation sucks scenario. Yeah. They just need to hear a little bit of this, or they need to get a little away from this, or they just need to open up their perspective.
So what would be your signature keynote?
Unlock the power of betting on yourself.
Unlock the power of betting on yourself.
Yeah.
And who would be your ideal target audience in that?
I would absolutely say entrepreneurs, people that are looking to grow, people that are looking to grow into leadership, and they need that ability to bet on themselves. I'm always going to be a girl's girl, so I love speaking in front of women's audiences as well. I think that there's just a power in being able to look at other women and really help them elevate and grow. And I mean, it can, even students, in the university world, anybody that's in a point at their life where they really have to take a look at themselves in the mirror and say, either I'm all in and I got my back, or I'm going to lose it all. This is where it's like, yeah, take that shift, go forward. You got this. No one's going to save you. You have to save yourself.
Okay. And so from the time frame of May, after corporate, to now August, which is a few months, what has been your biggest goals? What do you want to accomplish with motivational speaking the most?
I'm looking to do more keynotes and actively get in front of a stage and be able to share that story and what can move you. But I'm doing things that I never thought I would do. Jumping on podcasts like this. This is dope. I'm really enjoying this. And I've somehow become a content creator. Okay. I don't know how that happened, but
that's everybody. That's 2024. You can't have a business without being a content creator nowadays.
how did that happen? So yes, that stretched the life out of me too, but I'm growing. And it's funny because when people set a higher expectation because you're hanging out with people that had set that higher expectation, you have a better chance of hitting it than if you were people that are a lower expectation that really aren't doing it for you.
Absolutely.
And I know there's a certain term for it and I can't remember. It starts with a P. But anyway.
Procrastination?
No, it's another one. Watch it come back to us after the cameras go off and I'll look at you and I'm like, it's that word. And I would say that I've had a chance to be on the radio, which has been really incredible. I had a chance to do one of my keynotes, Fired Again, at University of South Florida, which was wonderful.
I like the name of that, Fired Again.
Yes, Fired Again, because I've gotten fired more than once. And
Book coming soon?
What do you mean coming soon?
Book coming soon?
Actually, yeah, I'm actually working on an ebook.
That sounds like a fire name. Fired Again would make me like look at the cover of the book and then want to read it. Like, what do you mean, Fired Again? That's nice.
Oh, I was working on a couple other things, but that's a good one. Note taken.
Affiliate link needed.
Hey, so I have gotten myself back out of the house too, which has been incredible. I am networking again. I am meeting incredible people. I am putting myself out there in front of all types of individuals. And I've met some of the coolest people in Tampa. And I am so grateful. I mean, I even met Brendan through my first mentor, which is Caesar, a guy that I went to school with. And he has his own PR company. And I've watched him build that entire company from the ground up. And he's just oozing success. And I remember when I first got into it, I called him and I was like, Caesar, how can I work with you? And he was just so excited. He was like, Raquel, out of everybody we went to school with, you are the first one that's come to me and said, how can I work with you? Not to just try and find a job working with me. How do I develop my own business? And it was through Caesar that I met Brendan, who has now become my second mentor and is helping me develop from another perspective of my business so I can continue growing, which has been outstanding and incredible for me. And I'm literally getting tested at every corner. I'm serious when I say I'm uncomfortable at all times, but I know the growth is there and I'm excited for what comes next and how I can continue to help more people because
you're going to have another 16 months, but in entrepreneurship.
That's the hard part.
That is the very hard part because your first literally probably like year and a half, 16 months of entrepreneurship are of the roughest when you choose to commit fully.
Yes.
When you fully choose to commit, and even when you don't have the vision that you have being fed in the moment is when you have to keep going. You're on your last legs when, different things happen. Even this studio. We just got this August 1st and I went into it with 2 other partners. Halfway through the process, the other partner's gone. And so went into a whole situation where we thought it would be something else. And then it developed into this and everything still worked out.
Because what's meant for you will never pass you by.
Boom.
And that's, by the way, it looks great in here. If you all are looking to work with Rich, do it. This is a great studio, great vibes, great people. Absolutely love it. You've done a beautiful job with it. I'm very excited to continue to see it grow.
Thank you. Absolutely. So as, part of the ending note, we like to get into something we call gem drops. And so in gem drops, when you're motivationally speaking, when you're in front of a crowd, when you're on stage, for somebody that wants to develop the gall, the presence that you've accumulated through a lot of these different experiences. For some people, they're not going to go through those same experiences, but how can somebody still get to that same level of intensity as you?
I would say that I actually coach as well. Okay. And I coach people to be professional speakers or get on stage. And a lot of people are going to focus in on the messaging, which is very, very important. We're not going to act like that's not important. But delivery is also important. And stage presence has been something I've learned from the time I was a young kid in many different scenarios. And it is where I help people just come out of themselves and really own the moment and basically perform it, right? So a lot of times before someone goes on stage, because 95% of people are afraid of professional speaking. They rather die
literally
than get up in front of a crowd. what they're feeling is an energy build. Everything is energy. And so a lot of times that can come out in anxiety, that can come out in stress. You start sweating, your palms get clammy, you're like, right? And what it comes down to is you have to take that energy that's building and convert it out to your audience. That is where you will see the magic happen. When you're able to take all of that energy that's building and when the moment hits, like when the music starts, I used to always think the worst part is when you're walking on stage. I used to always say that. And you're sitting there and when you're waiting for the music to start as a dancer, it's like, and then the music would hit and it would be go time, which was absolutely amazing. And that's when it was like, all right, channel it back out. Because at the end of the day, when you allow the audience to scare you, there's a lot of energy in the audience. There's a lot of people and they're just all staring at you. And sometimes the audience is dope and sometimes the audience is not easy to deal with. And it feels like a tidal wave. Yeah. And you have to have enough energy and strength within yourself to say, nah, I'm matching the energy and I'm pushing back and I'm going to give it out to you. That is where you really see the difference between somebody that can deliver a message and somebody that can be memorable and take that moment and say, oh, yes, I had a transformational experience listening to that person instead of, yeah, I took a couple notes, I fell asleep, I played on my phone, you just capture your audience. So really working the energy of the room and the confidence to seal it in.
Okay. No, listen, she articulated that very well, but do not let those gems go over your head. No, Rocky, this was amazing. Getting to just understand the parts of you that aren't often shared. That's part of your story. We wouldn't have you here today in the way that we do without you doing, those things. And so people always tell me, if you can go back 10 years and tell yourself something or change stuff, what would you do? And I usually tell them nothing. I wouldn't tell myself anything because I value where I am right now. Yes, there are things that I didn't like. Of course, there are things that I loved. But at the same time, if I tell myself something that would alter my thought process, I may not be the same version of me that I am right now.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of Marvel and all the different outcomes, right? Doctor Strange and how that all plays out. And it really is the truth. I literally look back at my life and as painful as so many times were, it was, well, that's what developed you into the person you were. And that's what you chose this life. This soul chose this life and knew you will make it to your destination. You just have to believe in yourself and love yourself through the process. And you can do it.
Absolutely. And so if people wanted to learn more about you, listen to you, get coaching from you, where could they do all of that at?
Well, if you're on IG, Rocky Toro Speaks. And I also have Facebook. I keep it pretty consistent. Rocky Toro Speaks across the board. I have my website, Rocky Toro Speaks. Okay. So you can jump on my website, do my form fill, get in touch with me directly there. Also my email, rockytorospeaks@gmail.com. Again, keep it consistent, but just follow me on IG, see what I'm about, see some of the messaging I have. I also have a YouTube channel as well, same handle. And the YouTube channel is slowly getting better, but I'm doing it. And I'm, again, out of my comfort zone and growing as each video goes up. So you can join me on that journey of watching my videos get better because that's the only direction they can go from here.
Absolutely. Consistency.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, there you have it. You guys got to hear a little bit about Rocky, her story, and her big, just presence, the stage presence. Motivational speaking is not easy. Literally, every single person that has come on here and talked about it has shared these similar output. Like, people are scared to do it. It's not an easy category. And being able to articulate yourself well is, I wouldn't even call it a talent. It's deeper. It's like a skill. You have to develop that. And it takes years. And even when you develop that, there's another level. It's like, oh, this mountain looks good, just like you said, but oh, that one looks pretty good too. And so you have to get to the next level. But guys, if you like this, make sure that you share with a friend. And it's your host, Mastermind Rich. And as we always say, if you look good, we live good, life good, talk to us, we talk back, and we out.